I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.
Welcome to Simply the Law of Life with Gary C. Johnson and Keith Casebolt.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law of Life radio and television program. I'm Keith Casebolt with my friend Gary C. Johnson. Gary, the book says, Dale Carnegie, that on a daily basis we should give sincere and just praise.
You should. No question.
And in all honesty, it should be easy to do, isn't it? Because if you've pointed this out before, in every day, how many people do you have come into your life that do something for you that you are really grateful for?
Every day, I went through a McDonald's drive-thru this morning, and I was eternally grateful for those people that took my money and handed me my Egg McMuffin. I mean, honestly.
Didn't have to get out of your car.
That's right.
Didn't have to make it.
And I thank them, too.
Of course.
I ran into a lady at the grocery store about 2 weeks ago that was working there. And I knew her from before, and I was talking to her for just a second. And then I said, "Thank you so much for being here working." She said, "I was wondering when you was going to get around to saying that."
So she's heard the show and watched the show.
Evidently.
But, you pointed out one time about what goes into making the breakfast. I think you and your wife Anita had talked about it. We take for granted on a daily basis, just like you talked about the person at McDonald's or the person at the gas station or anyone that we come in contact with, we have grown to the point to where we expect these things to happen.
And the bottom line is, my friends, without all of you, everyone, working together to make these things happen, we would not have a civilization, society, or anything. Mm-hmm. And each and every person is as important as everyone else. The thing about it is, my friends, you were all created equal. And as we go through life, circumstances may beat us down to thinking we're not, huh? And people may tell us, well, you're not. I've had someone say to me one time, I'm just a little person. And I said to him, oh, no, you're not. You're as big as anyone alive. And you're that important. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about on the show today is how important you really are.
Because in our society right now, Gary, it seems like that we're constantly seeking approval, that we're constantly looking to someone else to say, you're okay the way that you are, or you're fine the way that you look, or that you're just as good. Why are we seeking that approval when we should be feeling that ourselves?
Because it's just the way it is. I mean, I can't change it. I mean, we constantly look to others for reinforcement, to make us feel good about ourselves, when we shouldn't. But we do. Okay? Yeah. So I'm going to read to you a little bit from a book here that I think is really important. Listening to Your Inner Voice by Ellen Hall and James Waru. It's got some interesting stuff in it about your importance and why you are so important. And it's because you have the inner voice. And that inner voice, per these folks, is God talking to you. Every major religion, according to this book, and it's true, and they quote it, says, let's take Islamic, okay? I am in your souls. Why see you not? In every breath of yours I am. In other words, God is inside of you, each and every one of you. Otherwise, how could he communicate with you, right? The Buddhist, everything has the Buddha nature. This is your self. Shinto, major religion. The human mind, partaking of divinity, is an abode of the deity, which is the spiritual essence. There exists no higher deity outside the human mind. Shinto. Hindu, I am the true, the real Brahma, that art also the heart of man is the abode of God. All major religions now, we're talking about, says that this. Christian, the kingdom of God does not come with observation, nor will they say, see here or see there. For indeed the kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:20.
So this may be the most astounding thing that you've ever said on the program, because I don't know any of the major religions that can hardly agree on anything.
But that's the one thing they agree on.
But one thing they all agree on is that the higher power is within you, inside of you, and talking to you.
Let me read you this. We're God's children, right? Do we all agree to that? Okay. Look at it from God's point of view. Do you want to and like to speak to your own children? God, whose Scripture tells us that he made us in his image and likeness, has usually been likened to a parent. What parent does not want to speak to his or her children? Do you want to speak to your children only when they have been good and not when they've been bad? All parents have had the experience of wanting and needing to love their children at precisely the point when the children are in the baddest and the neediest of the parents' love. Why should God be any different? A component of your feeling of worthiness to hear the voice of God is God's own desire to communicate with you.
So when our kids are disappointed or they're heartbroken over a breakup or a bad grade in school, they run to the parent to say, comfort me, something bad has happened to me, and we give them comforting words. You're saying inside of us, we basically are doing the same thing? We're running to our higher power?
What these people are saying is that God isn't off in the distance somewhere. He is part of a universal intelligence that exists within every human being that's ever born. And that you have, and that universal intelligence, which is God, can communicate with you, and does.
So that key phrase there, you said every human being that was born has this. So we say this is our conscious talking, it's our subconscious, it's our little voice in the head. You're saying not so. It's the infinite wisdom and power of a higher being that's inside of us.
Well, you have dark thoughts, right? That's not your inner voice that's in tune with the universe. That's a different thing altogether. That's a combination. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. That comes out of your subconscious from things that's been fed into you. And here's a little example about this teacher that she has in here to explain to you. There's a big difference between that. I was teaching a class of teenage boys recently, and one of them was particularly obnoxious. The thought suddenly occurred to me that I should just blow him away. I was shocked at myself. Where did that come from? Upon reflection, I realized that the day before, the boys had been talking about deer hunting and the fascination with guns. And I had just seen a particularly violent TV show. The images of violent, unilateral solutions to problems had been bombarding my subconscious mind for days. No wonder a violent solution to this student's behavior came into my mind. I am constantly reminded of the power of our unconscious influences, TV, movie, blogs, news, books, and commonly shared opinions.
Wow. So for everybody listening to this program or watching the broadcast, have all of us at one time or another had a bad thought in our mind about maybe punching somebody in the nose or doing something bad to get even with somebody? Of course we have.
Sure.
All of us.
But that comes from the subconscious. That's not the inner voice.
So, Gary, when somebody spits out a slur or they say a bad word and they come back on to apologize and they say, "That's not me," are you agreeing that that's not them?
Huh?
That's not really who they are, the core of who they are.
No. And this book goes on to say, in Robert Wall Clary's The Still Small Voice, God says, let me read you this. It is very important that you learn to distinguish between my still small voice and the voice of the negative force, the voice of darkness. The negative voice can come to you from any source in the outer world or the subconscious or from a darkness of your own soul, if you let it. Its attributes are the opposite in every respect of your inner voice. The negative voice will always appeal to your lower nature, to the satisfaction or fulfillment of personal selfish motives, desires, or needs. By the voice of darkness, we mean a negative message in our inner monologue, a voice that creates fear.
Okay, so let's go back to the little cartoons that we used to watch as kids. You remember the cartoons where the little angel would pop up on one shoulder and say, "Do this, do this," and then the little devil would pop up on the other shoulder and go, "No, punch him in the nose, punch him in the nose."
Yeah.
So back from that cartoon, are you saying that's reality, that we have the little angel voice and the little devil voice that's inside of us?
Here's one other thing. Ignoring our inner voice is encouraged by culture, and it takes a lot of effort to overcome so that you can listen to that inner voice. Now, in summing up about this book, I'll read you this. They say when you talk to God, you're praying. When he talks to you, you're schizophrenic and crazy.
So, okay, it's believable when you're doing it, but not believable if you're saying that it's being done to you. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
No, the purpose of what I was doing from this book is, and there's a lot written on this, is how important you are. How you should never, ever let anybody put you down, not even for 1 second. And if you're in a bad situation, maybe you want to try to get out of it. You were not born into this world with sin. You were not born in this world with any prejudices or biases. You were a blank slate when you were born. Now, circumstances and exposures and things that you've had in life, that we've had in life, all of us, has shaped us to a great extent. But the core value, the core of who you are, can never be touched unless you let it. That is one of the most profound things I think I can ever say to you. The core of who you are and what you were born with can never be touched without your permission.
So, Gary, I'm thinking back to a program you did one time where you talked about children going into preschool, 4-year-old children going into preschool. Different colors, different nationalities, different culture standards, economic standards, but when these children came together, they loved each other, they all played with each other, they were in harmony because their picture, their portrait hadn't been painted yet. They were pure. So that's how we come into this life, and then it's the pictures that are drawn from us are from our experiences where we change that.
My friends, I want you to imagine a canvas that has a painting on it. That's your life, period. Would you repaint it? Would you like to paint some things on that canvas different?
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Would you like to have more laughter and fun and happiness in your life to put on that canvas of what your life is? Of course you would. Why not do it? why not say to yourself, I am important, and I'm going to be important, and I don't care if anybody else thinks I'm important or not. I know I am.
You remember when we were kids and we'd play games and we'd do slips over or do-overs? If you messed up playing the game, you could always say, oh, slips over, do-overs, let's do it over. You're saying in life, no matter what that picture looks like right now, you can take a big old eraser and you can erase it and you can start painting it again.
What I'm saying to you, my friends, is all you have is today. Today. Everything that's happened to you in the past can never be changed. You can have all the regrets in the world. You can think about it and think about it and think about it and think about it till you go absolutely crazy. But you can't change the past. The future is a blank slate. It's blank. You decide what's on that slate in the future.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most powerful thing I think you've said, is that today you can look and say, I've got today, I don't know about tomorrow, but I've decided to paint my own picture.
Right. And then think it through and decide what that picture's going to be. And then live day by day by day by day to make it happen.
And Gary, I think the reason you're telling us this is it's not because we're surrounded by bad, awful people who are telling us that we're unworthy. It's the fact that we're saying it. We're the ones doing it to ourselves.
How many times, my friends, those of you that are listening or watching this, have said to yourself, I'm bad, I'm not good, I'm not worthy, all because of the past?
Here's another habit we fall into. You pointed out something to me a couple of years ago. You said, Keith, do you know you have a habit of putting yourself down? Do you know you have a habit of criticizing yourself? And I honestly didn't know that until you pointed it out. So just before we did this program, I had a friend in here that we were doing some work for, and he said some very lovely things about me. And what did I say? Oh, he's crazy. That's not true. Why would I turn down a nice compliment from a dear friend who I believe was 100% sincere in the things that he said, but my immediate reaction was to say, oh, that's not true.
Well, let me ask you this, Keith, and my friends out there. Do you think I'm dumb enough to have somebody be on this show with me that's not competent? When people put Keith down, they put me down because, Keith, you are talented. How many of you, everybody that raise your hands think that Keith is really talented out there? And he is.
But why do we fall into what I just did? Is it a safety mechanism that are we thinking if I put myself down and if I say these things about me, then I don't have to worry about anybody else saying them?
Well, you're beating them to it.
So I'm beating them to the punch.
Right.
You can't hurt me because I'm going to go ahead and say what I think you're thinking.
You got it.
Boy, that's devastating, isn't it?
How many of my friends out there are doing it to themselves right now? How many of you, when somebody gives you a compliment, you say, oh, no, that's...
I'll bet you.
How many of you really and truly just perk up and say, oh, boy, you're right?
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for saying it. You're right. I am a pretty good person, and I know what I'm doing, and I am important.
Gary, I've seen it 1,000 times that you give a compliment to somebody and you say, that is unbelievable what you did, and they'll go, oh, it's no big deal.
That's right.
Yeah, it's no big deal. Anybody could do it. No, that's not true. Anybody can't do it.
That's right, because each and every single person that's alive has a special talent. God would not have let you be born if you didn't have something special about you that at least 10,000 other people doesn't have. You can do something. There's something that makes you different from the people around you. And there's something special that does that.
You know, you said that in this book in chapter 2 in Dale Carnegie, he quotes Emerson saying, every human being I come in contact with, I treat them as my superior because I know I can learn something from each of them.
That's an absolute fact. Try it, folks. Just give it a chance. Next time you're around somebody, even if it's your friend, say to yourself, I'm going to watch and see what they can do better than me. And what do they know that I don't know? What makes them different from me and what makes them special? You'll be surprised at what you come up with. You really will.
That's why we call it teamwork, right? Because when you put individuals, I've heard you talk about your office and the people with you, and you're like, it's amazing that this individual can do this attorney knows how to do this individual does this attorney does this, and by the time it gets around the table, we have formed the perfect plan.
You talk about teamwork. I call her Super Sarah. Because it is amazing what she can do with a computer, and it just boop, 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 boop.
And let me ask you, if you were to say to Sarah, that is amazing, would she look at you and say, it's no big deal, Gary?
Well, I've trained her. She did not say that. I think Sarah knows how good she is at what she does. Then we've got all these attorneys, that just brilliant guys that work with us. They've got all these young, fresh minds. They've got all of this young enthusiasm. They've got all of this recent knowledge. They were born with computers.
All true, but guess what? We were doing a production and filming a lot of your attorneys here. And when they talked about what they were learning from you, you could see their eyes light up. Gary's able to explain. Gary's able to point out. And all of them were just giving praise to you about your abilities.
Well, I've accumulated a whole lot of knowledge over 49 years of practicing law.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's still good stuff.
because it deals with people.
Because it's dealing with people. But in the end, it's all just about doing the right thing. The one thing I teach them, number one, is the client comes first. Don't worry about the fee. Don't worry about anything. In the end, make sure the client's taken care of. Therefore, we have been very successful because that's our attitude.
Mm-hmm. Dealing with people. And, back to this Dale Carnegie book, Charles Schwab was one of the first people to ever be paid $1 million. And they asked him why, and he said, I don't know much about steel, but I know everything about people.
And that's right.
And that's why he was paid that salary, because of his skills with people.
Those of you, and I say this a lot, that are in a situation where you're finding yourself being miserable, ask that inner voice to help you figure your way out of it, and you will get an answer. Then, seriously, listen to that answer when you get it. Because if you don't listen to it, it might not answer you next time. But
it's not going to waste its time.
That's exactly right. So,
well, let's recap that. So Gary read from the book, listen to your inner voice, that all major religions agree on one thing, that good, comforting voice that's inside of you comes from a higher power.
That's right, which is within you.
And Gary, the other point about it was, if you have that inside of you, how unique, how miraculous, how wonderful is it that you are that valuable that you would have that voice talk to you?
And a lot of you that's listening to this don't believe that you're that important. Do you? Huh? Raise your hand if you don't believe you're that important. Okay? But you are. Give it a try. What have you got to lose? There's no downside to it, right? And those dark thoughts, that you have, that's coming from being bombarded with TV and negativity and all of this stuff that's in your subconscious, and their subconscious is spitting it back out to you. That's you, in one sense, of the subconscious correlating all of that. But the real you is that inner voice, that good voice, the good, the positive. That's the real you.
So, great lesson that we all have bad thoughts. We all have negative thoughts. But the inner voice is the one that we need to tune into.
And you can.
And for heaven's sakes, this week, if you get a compliment, take it and be thankful and believe the person that's giving it to you is telling you the truth.
Because they are. People don't just give compliments just to be given them.
Is it a fact we can't stop having people put us down until we stop putting ourselves down? Is that the fact?
Amen. One other thing from a legal standpoint I need to say to you, please make sure you check your insurance policy and make sure you have under UNDER insurance that protects you and your family. We're seeing a lot of cases come in anymore where people have not purchased underinsurance because the agent didn't tell them they could buy it. So, I'm going back to the old thing. I preached this for years in Eastern Kentucky. I need to preach it some more. Make sure you have underinsurance on your insurance policy. UNDER.
Yeah.
Under.
If you believe that they sold you only what you need, call Gary's office and let them look at it. You'll find out they didn't sell you what you need.
They're lying when they say we're only going to sell you what you need.
Thank you so much for taking this time. We started out with sincere, genuine praise to individuals, and then we ended up the program with saying, make sure you accept it and don't put yourself down, because Gary pointed out how unique you are. If you'd like to leave Gary a message or a comment about the program, Gary at GaryCJohnson.com. My friend, good to be here today.
Wonderful to be here.
On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you so much for taking this time. We look forward to seeing you again next week, same time.
Thank you for listening to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.